This Airbnb had perfect reviews, no red flags, no weird photos, no warning signs, just 5-star ratings and a killer view. But none of the guests ever left reviews after staying a second time. One guy vanished. Another sent a message begging to cancel hours after checking in, but it was already too late. What's inside those walls isn't just haunted, it's hungry. I'd been scrolling Airbnb listings for hours when I found it. The cabin, tucked deep in the Appalachian woods of West Virginia, far from the cities and barely reachable by GPS, it was called the Ridgeview Escape. The photos were stunning. A-frame wooden structure, rustic interior with cozy lighting, and massive glass windows that stared into an endless green forest. The kind of place you'd pay a fortune to experience silence, solitude, and, if the marketing was to be believed, a spiritual reset. I wasn't looking for ghosts. I was looking for answers. My name is Darren Holt. I'm a filmmaker who specializes in exposing digital hoaxes, haunted TikTok houses, fake poltergeist accounts, AI-generated paranormal photos, you name it. I investigate the claims and blow them apart. The Ridgeview Escape, however, had me puzzled. There was too much silence, over 300 stays. Not a single bad review. No noise on Reddit. No Twitter threads warning about creepy experiences. Even in the dark corners of the internet, where ghost hunters exchange stories of places that breathe, this cabin was never mentioned. That should have been the biggest red flag of all. It was early May when I booked it. I rented it under a fake name, as always, Gregory Sutter. Just a solo traveler, trying to unwind. The host's reply came instantly. "Welcome, Gregory. We're thrilled to have you. Everything will be ready when you arrive. Just follow the rules, and you'll have an unforgettable stay." Smiling face with smiling eyes. The rules? I scrolled down. There, hidden beneath the listing in a collapsible section labeled House Etiquette, were 9 rules. They were odd. Not overly creepy, just specific. I saved a screenshot. Candle Ridgeview Escape, guest guidelines. Candle do not arrive before sunset. The cabin wakes at dusk. Knock 3 times before entering. Do not open the door without knocking, even if it's already unlocked. Once inside, leave your shoes on the doormat. You may not need them later. Do not open the basement door. There is no reason to go down there. You may hear knocking between 2 to 3 a.m. Do not answer. It's not for you. Avoid using mirrors after midnight. Remember, if you hear footsteps above you, go outside. Wait on the porch until they stop. Never stay more than 3 nights. The 4th sunrise is not meant for guests. If you break any rule, apologize. Out loud. They're listening. It was the kind of thing that usually screams gimmick. A few creepy rules to go viral on TikTok. Classic Airbnb horror bait. But this was different. The listing wasn't viral. It wasn't even popular. It was hiding. And I was going to find out why. Day 1, arrival. I pulled into the gravel driveway around 7:45 p.m., just as the sun dipped below the tree line. The air was thick, earthy, and oddly sweet, like damp moss mixed with pine sap. There were no birds, no wind. Just that hollow silence you only get deep in old woods. The cabin looked exactly like the pictures. Maybe better, but up close, something felt wrong. The wood siding was darker than in the photos, almost scorched in places. The windows reflected nothing but black, even with daylight behind me. There was a faint hum in the air, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. I approached the front door and paused. Knocked 3 times. My hand hesitated in the air. I told myself it was stupid, just a theme, a tone-setting gag for tourists. Still, I knocked. Once, twice, thrice. There was a delay, and then a click from inside. The door creaked open an inch. No one was visible. "Hello?" I called. No answer. I pushed it open and stepped inside. The warmth hit me immediately, like the house had been expecting me. I slipped off my shoes and set them on the welcome mat. Then the door shut behind me. Slowly, on its own. Inside the cabin, the interior was gorgeous. Dark wood floors, stone fireplace, leather couches that looked untouched, and the smell of aged cedar and burning sage. It was too clean. Lived in, but not lived through. There were no family photos. No personal artifacts. Not even a guest book. Just the faint sound of wind chimes, though I hadn't seen any outside. The basement door was to my right. Bolted shut. I unpacked my equipment in the main room. Night vision cameras, EMF reader, UV flashlight, and my recording gear. The plan was to live stream parts of the experience to my closed group of Patreon backers. But something was already off. My EMF reader was jumping wildly, even with no electronics nearby, and my main camera, dead. The battery had drained from 100% to 0 on the drive over. Impossible. It was fully charged before I left. I chalked it up to interference, maybe an old electrical grid, maybe my nerves. But that night, things began. 2:13 It started with knocking. 3 slow, deliberate knocks from the front door. I lay frozen in bed, eyes wide, holding my breath. Then another knock, but this time from the back wall, a place where there was no door, no window, just a wall of pine logs. Then again, from inside the fireplace. I didn't move. I didn't answer. The knocking stopped at exactly 3:00, and then the floorboards above me creaked, softly, like someone walking barefoot. I remembered the rule. If you hear footsteps above you, go outside. So I did. I grabbed a flashlight and quietly crept to the door. When I stepped onto the porch, the cold air wrapped around me like a wet sheet. The woods were darker than pitch, too dark, even for a forest. The stars were gone. The moon, gone. And then something walked by the window inside, tall, pale, hairless, not a person, not anything living. I stayed outside until dawn. The morning after the knocking, I found a strange detail I hadn't noticed before. The mirror in the hallway was fogged over, like someone had taken a hot shower nearby, except I hadn't touched the bathroom. And when I wiped away the condensation with my sleeve, I saw a handprint, small, slender, smudged, pressed from the inside of the mirror. The fingers trailed downward like they'd been trying to crawl out. I tried to convince myself I was dreaming, that it was just residual anxiety. After all, I'd read the rules expecting to debunk them, not believe in them. But this place had a way of peeling that skepticism away. And fast I left the hallway and returned to my laptop to recheck the Airbnb host's info. No last name. No contact number. Just the username, Ridgeview Caretaker. No profile photo. No other listings. I opened the drawer by the bed, hoping to find a guest manual or some leftover notes. Anything to suggest another human had stayed here. Instead, I found something much worse. A phone, old, dusty, a cracked screen, still powered on. There were only 2 apps left, camera and gallery. I opened the gallery. There were 43 videos, each one labeled with just a date, spanning the last 7 years, each. Video around 3 minutes long, all silent, all filmed from the same angle, facing the front door. Every video showed someone different, guests standing in the exact spot I stood last night, some entering cautiously, some laughing, unaware of what waited inside. And in almost every video, by the time the second minute ticked past, something began watching them from the mirror. Not a reflection. A figure, blurry, tall, shifting its shape like smoke in water. Sometimes it smiled, and the more I watched, the more I noticed a pattern. Each video stopped suddenly, always mid-movement, like someone cut the footage just as something terrible was about to happen. Except for the last video. Video #43 date, April 12th, 2024. Less than 3 weeks before I arrived. A woman in her mid-30s stood in the cabin entryway, blonde, nervous. She was alone, dragging a suitcase behind her. The video was from a hidden camera, clearly mounted inside a wall or lamp. As she explored the room, the same tall, pale shape began emerging in the mirror again. It stayed motionless until 2:43 on the video timer. Then she looked toward it. Not at the mirror, at the camera, dead into the lens, like she saw me watching her. Her mouth moved, and even though there was no audio, I could read her lips. "You shouldn't have come here." I slammed the laptop shut and backed away. Suddenly, I was aware of every sound in the cabin. The buzzing of the overhead light, the creaking of the wood, the deep, pulsing hum in the floorboards. And then I saw it. Out the front window. A car, old, rusted, parked halfway down the gravel road. Someone was inside it. Watching. I grabbed my flashlight and stormed out the front door, heart racing. The car was empty by the time I reached it. No tire tracks. No footprints. Like it had been placed there. Or worse, like it had always been there. I turned back toward the cabin and paused. There was now a light on in the basement window. A warm, amber glow that flickered like candlelight. The basement door inside had been locked tight. Or so I thought. Back inside, I approached the door slowly. It was wide open. Inside, the air was thick and warm, the temperature rising with each step downward. The staircase was steep, almost too steep for a basement, more like a cellar carved into the hillside. The walls were lined with mirrors, dozens of them, each mismatched, some antique, some new, all cracked or smudged. They didn't reflect properly. Some seemed delayed, some too sharp, and in one of them, I saw the woman from the video. She stood behind me, but when I turned around, she was gone. In the center of the basement was a small wooden stool, and resting on it, a journal. The cover read, Logbook, Property Number 473, Ridgeview Escape. I opened it and scanned the pages. It wasn't just a guest book, it was a catalog, each entry dated, signed, and labeled by a caretaker. A list of guests, what rules they broke, what time they departed. Some had check marks next to them. Some had crosses. The most recent entry, April 13th, subject, Grace K. Broke rule number 5, answered knocking. Broke rule number 6, mirror use after midnight. Tried to leave during night cycle. Apology insufficient. Absorbed, status. Room claimed, absorbed. I dropped the book, and that's when the whispering started, dozens of voices, faint and angry, surrounding me from inside the mirrors. Break a rule. Stay too long. They need more. I ran up the stairs, through the door, slamming it behind me. Only now it wouldn't lock. I packed my bags, grabbed my gear, and ran to the car. The engine clicked, but it wouldn't start. Something was draining it. Like the house didn't want me to leave. Then the stereo turned on. Full volume. It played my own voice from an earlier vlog. The Ridgeview Escape isn't just another haunted house hoax. I'm here to find the truth. The radio began to distort. The truth, the truth, the truth, until it screamed in static, then silence. That night, I didn't sleep. I waited for 2 a.m. with a baseball bat in hand. But the knocking didn't come from the front door this time. It came from inside the closet. I didn't answer. I didn't speak. I stayed frozen until the sunrise bled through the trees. And with it, the house changed. The furniture was rearranged. The fridge was stocked with food I never brought. And my camera, dead the day before, was fully charged. Only now, it had new footage on it. Footage I hadn't taken. Clips of me, sleeping, from different angles, from inside the closet. There's something ancient here, not just haunted, predatory. I thought I was investigating a ghost story, but I walked into a ritual, and I'm starting to think. I wasn't the one who booked this cabin. It booked me. They say a mirror can show you who you are, but this one showed me who I'd never be again. My name is Darren Holt, and if this footage is found, please burn the Ridgeview Escape to the ground. The morning after the closet incident, I woke up to find the mirrors had multiplied. There were now 2 new ones in the kitchen. I hadn't placed them there. They weren't there the day before. And worse, they were watching me. It sounds crazy. I know, but I swear to God, I blinked, and when I opened my eyes, one mirror had turned slightly, just enough to reflect my face perfectly, dead center. Like it was adjusting, like it wanted to see how scared I was. That was the moment I knew I wasn't dealing with a traditional haunting. This wasn't residual energy. It wasn't the soul of some woman who died in 1902. This was intelligent, curious, hungry. I barricaded the basement door with the couch, taped every mirror, switched off my phone. My plan was simple: survive my final night, leave at sunrise. I had one night left, just one, but the house had other plans. That afternoon, I noticed something strange on my laptop. The Airbnb listing for Ridgeview Escape was gone. I refreshed the page. Nothing. Then I checked my email confirmation. Also gone. My entire trip wiped from my inbox, like it never existed, like I was never here. Panic set in. I turned to my phone to call someone, anyone, but every number in my contacts was corrupted. All names had been replaced with one word: apologize. I threw the phone across the room. It shattered. The mirrors rattled. That night, the house began to breathe. I'm not being metaphorical. I mean, it physically inhaled. The walls expanded and contracted, groaning, like something massive was sleeping inside the walls and had started to wake up. The windows fogged. The lights dimmed to flickering embers. And then, the voices started again. Only this time, they knew my name. Darren. Darren. Break the rule. Set us free. 11:56 p.m. I knew the mirror rule. Rule number 6. Avoid using mirrors after midnight. So, of course, the mirrors began to glow just before midnight. A pale, silvery pulse from behind the glass, like moonlight caught in water that I tried not to look. I swear I tried. But they whispered, they whimpered, they begged. One voice in particular stood out. It was my mother's voice. Darren, it's okay. Baby, come here. I turned. Just once. The hallway mirror showed my childhood bedroom. My mom on the edge of my bed, smiling softly, reaching out. Then she changed. Her eyes went black. Her smile widened until it split her cheeks, and she crawled. Out of the mirror. I ran. I grabbed my car keys and sprinted to the door. It wouldn't open. Not even a budge. The windows were now covered in something thick. Red. Wet. Blood. I backed away. And that's when the hallway mirror shattered. Not from an impact, but from something. Breaking through. A hand. Long. Skeletal. Fingers too many. Then an arm. Then it pulled itself out. It had no face. Just a smooth, flat surface where features should be, like a mirror covered in skin. It tilted its head, and in my voice, it whispered, "You were never meant to leave." I hid in the upstairs bedroom, barricaded the door with a dresser, turned the lights off, tried to hold my breath as footsteps crawled up the stairs. Not walked, crawled, clack, clack, drag, clack, like hooves on hardwood. Then, silence. I thought I was safe, until the dresser began to move. Not pushed, pulled, from the inside, and the doorknob turned once, twice, then stopped. When I opened my eyes, it was morning. The mirrors were gone. The door opened normally. The sun poured in through the glass. It was over. Or so I thought. I drove. I didn't stop. I didn't look in the rearview mirror, not once, until I reached a diner 50 miles away. A woman in her 60s brought me coffee and asked if I was okay. I said no. I asked her if she'd ever heard of the Ridgeview escape. Her face went pale. She said, "That place burned down in 1996. Been gone ever since. Nobody's stayed there since the caretaker vanished. He used to collect antiques, mostly mirrors. Local legend says they're cursed." I showed her my photos. She stared in silence. Then she whispered, "That's the cabin. But you shouldn't have made it out." I checked my phone. The listing was back. New host. New name. Same photos. Same 9 rules. Just one new one added at the bottom. If Darren Holt returns, do not let him leave again. That's when I saw the mirror behind the diner booth, and my reflection smiled back at me. But I wasn't smiling. Some doors open in. Others open out. But the Ridgeview escape, it opens downward. Into something older than time. Deeper than the dirt it sits on. And now I'm part of it. My name was Darren Holt. If you're reading this, I'm begging you, don't look in the mirror. 4 days after I left the cabin, I started dreaming in mirrors that I'd fall asleep in my apartment in DC, but wake up in glass, not metaphorically. I'd be inside the reflection of my own room, trapped behind the surface. I could see my bed, my walls, even myself sleeping, but I couldn't scream, couldn't escape. And in those dreams, I wasn't alone. Something else moved in the reflection, taller than me, always just behind the corner of the glass. Watching, waiting, the real world began to bend. Emails I never sent appeared in my inbox. Recordings of my voice talking in sleep I'd never heard before. One day, I got a package with no return address. Inside was a mirror shard, and etched into the surface was a single phrase, "One night remains." I had never stayed the full 3 nights at Ridgeview. I left before the 3rd was done. I had broken the rules. The house wasn't finished with me. I did the only thing I could think of. I went back. The drive was different this time. The roads weren't roads. GPS refused to load. Trees leaned in. Ways that made the forest feel aware of my direction. It was like being digested. By the time I arrived, the house looked changed. It was breathing again. The wood expanded and exhaled mist. Windows pulsed like blood vessels. And standing on the porch was a mirror version of me, dressed in the same outfit I wore on my first night. He smiled, then turned and walked through the door. I followed and stepped into the past. The moment I crossed the threshold, the air shifted. Dust disappeared. Candles lit themselves. The house looked brand new, like it had reset, like it was expecting a new guest. On the wall, a new frame had appeared. Inside it, a photo of me, except my face had no eyes. The same way the woman in the video smiled before she changed. My voice echoed from nowhere. "Welcome back, Darren." You never checked out. I made my way to the basement. This time, there was no door, just a mirror, standing in the middle of the floor, taller than a man and rippling like water that I don't know what made me do it, but I reached out. My fingers went through the glass, and so did the rest of me. Inside the mirror, it wasn't a reflection. It was a world, a warped, shadowed version of the cabin. Rooms stretched like funhouse corridors, colors drained, everything too quiet. There were no sounds, but there were whispers. Under the surface, like a chorus of trapped voices beneath. Ice. Then I saw them. The other guests. Hundreds. Some whole. Some just faces. Pressed against the mirror walls, silently mouthing things I couldn't hear. Their eyes followed me as I walked. And at the center of it all was the caretaker. Or what was left of him. He sat on a stone throne made of broken mirrors. His face was gone, just a void. He was tall, draped in a cloak of guest receipts and booking confirmations. He spoke without moving. They come to be alone. They leave in pieces. Mirrors remember, Darren. But humans forget. I demanded to know what he was. Why the house did. This, his response. We were called. Long ago. People want silence, solitude, escape. We give them what they ask for. Forever. I ran, through hallways that curved in circles, through doors that led back into themselves. The mirror world bent around me, shaping itself into every room I'd ever feared. My childhood basement. The hospital room where my father died. A hotel I'd once stayed in where someone vanished next door. It fed on memory, until I collapsed. When I woke, I was back in the real cabin. 3 days had passed, but something was wrong. My reflection was gone. I waved at the mirror. No response. It didn't show me anymore, just the room. Empty. Then I saw movement. A figure. Me, but older. Eyes black. Skin pale. He smiled at me through the mirror, then reached out. The final rule. I scrambled to the journal in the basement. The same caretaker's log I had found before. But this time, the last page was different. A final rule had been added. If your reflection no longer mimics you, it's already too late. And underneath that, thank you for becoming part of Ridgeview. I tried to escape. I broke every mirror in the house. Screamed until my voice bled. But the house no longer responded. It had digested me. Made me part of its system. I was the new echo. Now, when you rent Ridgeview Escape, you'll see a mirror in the upstairs hallway. And in that mirror, sometimes, only sometimes, you'll see me. Not a ghost, not a spirit, just a man who didn't check out. And if you look too long, I might blink. Even if you don't. Epilogue. The listing is live again. It changes names, photos, even descriptions, but the rules never change. And the 9th guest of every cycle disappears. Local legend says the mirrors were never built into the house. They grew there, like veins, and the house isn't haunted. It's alive. If you ever book a cabin deep in the woods, and it asks you to knock 3 times before entering, and never answer knocking between 2 and 3 a.m. Run. Don't unpack. Don't investigate. Just run. Because some Airbnb hosts don't care about ratings. They just want to keep you. The sky above Ridgeview wasn't real anymore. Clouds pulsed like lungs. The sun blinked like an eye. And when I stepped outside the cabin for what I thought would be the last time, the trees leaned toward me. I wasn't escaping. I was being escorted. I walked down the gravel drive. There was no CAR.NO road. Only fog. And in that fog stood a dozen versions of me. Each one frozen in a different moment. Holding a camera, screaming. In fear, crawling backward, staring into the mirror. All me. All trapped. The cabin had copied my memories, my fears, my timelines. Now it didn't need me to stay, because it had become me. Somewhere in the world, a new Airbnb listing just went live. It's called Modern Rustic Retreat. Perfect for solo creators. It's my face in the host photo. It's my name, Darren Holt, as the verified superhost. And the rules? They're almost the same, just one new addition. Please leave a review after your stay. Unless the mirror leaves one first. People will book it. They always do. They're tired, they're lonely. They want to unplug for the weekend. They don't read the rules. They don't knock. And when they disappear, there's no search party. No news. Just another 5-star review that says, the cabin was quiet. The mirrors were beautiful. And I never felt alone. I thought being trapped in the mirror would be the worst part. But it wasn't. It was what came after. For weeks, I drifted. Not alive. not dead, just flickering in the corner of every reflective surface the Ridgeview Escape touched. Phone screens, rearview mirrors, sunglasses. The house had fed on me. And now it was sending me out that I wasn't its prisoner anymore, that I was its messenger, that I began appearing in photos of guests before they even arrived, that a blurry face in a selfie, that a reflection in a glass table, that a shadow in a live stream. And then the deaths started happening off-site, that a woman in North Carolina was found in her apartment, all her mirrors shattered. But the police found a message scrawled in lipstick across the glass of her oven door. You broke Rule 6. She'd never stayed at Ridgeview. Not directly, but her sister had. And that's when I understood. The infection spreads. Every guest who breaks the rules leaves behind a little bit of the cabin that I in their mirrored, I in their housed, I in their blood, that I wasn't the only one trapped. I was just the first to figure it out. The house doesn't care about rules. It teaches through them. Each violation cracks reality a little more. Each apology comes too late. I found one more journal page last night. Not in the house. In a dream. It was signed by the original caretaker. The first 1.1874. Here's what it said. This land was never meant for homes. It was a gateway, a mouth, a mirror of God's mistake. I built the house to keep the thing inside. But people kept coming, wanting solitude. They got it. Eternally. The Ridgeview Escape was never an Airbnb. The platform was just a costume. The house lists itself that it chooses who to lure in. People who don't read the fine print. Lonely ones. Curious ones. Ones like me. And now, ones like you. Because if you've read this far, if you've imagined the mirrors, the fog, the rules, the knocking, then something's already watching you. Don't look into your screen's reflection. Don't check your bathroom mirror tonight. And whatever you do, don't answer the knocking. Not between 2 and 3 a.m. You read the story. Now you're part of the house. And when you hear your reflection whisper, leave a review. Just remember, the mirror already has